Think if we had no concept of memory, that word, if you like, didn't exist, and we had no concept of, if you like, a past events. Put it that way, because I'm, in a sense, one has to define memory to make this meaningful. How would that be? I mean, we would then be, in a sense, totally connected with everything that's going on, because we'd have no... where would the distinction be between what we know and what is known universally?
Now, if we're going to explore that, we have to be careful, because there's many people who don't have, memories of, their own past, whether it's kind of amnesia or, frankly, a form of dementia,
right.
Like short-term memory loss.
Okay, yeah.
And there's one very kind of powerful film, Memento, which explores the identity of a person who has no memory of what he's ever done.
Yeah.
And it's actually hideously frightening, because, rather than feel an enlightened state, you actually feel totally disconnected. You actually feel disconnected to the present, because you can't seem to put it in context,
But that implies that
if we're looking at it, I mean, it can't. It's not really that sort of context, is it?
But no, but that does imply, doesn't it? Which is what the brain and the mind does. That implies that to exist as we do, we have to have associations, right? Is that what you're saying, isn't it? Which is what the mind and the brain
generally
makes.
Seems how people kind of operate. That without.
So if you had no memory and you didn't know this was a table, you'd think, oh, what's this? Or would you? I don't know.
Well, I think the difficulties for such persons tend to be that I may be at this table, but I don't know why I'm at this table, or what I was doing before, or why I'm now talking to you.
But does that matter?
To those who have short-term memory, it's...
Well, no, but let's leave aside the sort of, the...
Well, that's why I'm saying...
I'm looking, in a sense, at a bigger picture.
Exactly, and that's what I'm trying to say, that, we're not really...
No, we're not talking about... Exactly, we're not talking about, disability per se. We're talking about, if you like, a situation where, if we have no memory per se, then it's like everything is... How can I express it? Everything is fresh, everything is alive, everything is vibrant, everything is a new experience, a new adventure. In other words, we don't come into something with assumptions about, how we should be in a certain situation, like sitting on a chair around a table and drinking from a glass. Simple example. That's all programmed, if you like, conditioned into us based on our associative memory.
Isn't it the question then of basically transcending memory? Rather than having no memory, we're actually transcending it, and we're not limiting our understanding of the present.
What would be the qualitative difference then?
Well, what I'm saying is that rather than normally we kind of allowing our identity to be defined by the past and by all our previous associations and understanding of the world.
Yes.
Fine, and we let that colour our view of the present and our vision and hopes for the future.
Yeah.
So what we're actually saying is, if we actually can't remember the past, we actually feel very disconnected. However, if we transcend the memories of the past, so we're actually, as you say, looking at the present with fresh eyes, not contaminated by all the ups and downs and disappointments and worries and frustrations that we might have, accrued over all the years of the past, and now we're looking at
the shame, the regrets.
Oh yes,
all of those.
And as well as some of the good things as well. Because that can also colour and distort how we look at the present as well. So it's a question of transcending it. So we're trying to see the present with absolutely fresh eyes. So I mean, this is an exercise that you're kind of really suggesting here. Is it possible that I can actually just look at this moment as if I'd never experienced any other before it?
Why not?
And why not indeed? Not an easy one, but one which is worth trying to do. Because if we can do that, we might get a clearer idea of who we are and where we're moving
to. I mean, this is wow. The implications of this are huge. I was going to say magnanimous is probably the wrong word, but I mean, there really is amazing implication, if you like, if you think about it. Because I'm not really suggesting wipe out memory for the sake of it, but what we are looking at, of course, is something whereby, as you say, so many of us, including ourselves, come into our daily existence, if you like, put it neutrally, with conditioning, with assumptions, with presuppositions, with a vision, if you like, an expectation of what to expect before it even happens. It's that sort of, that's how we're brought up, that's how we're taught, isn't it?
And it's always a self-fulfilling
it's always a self-fulfilling prophecy, exactly. So, to have that, if you like, slate rubbed clean, I mean, my sense is you'd need to be completely out of mind, wouldn't you? The mind would have to, find its own little home for a while. Would it not? I don't know. We can talk about that.
It would have to do something different than it usually does.
You would have to do something different than it usually does, that's right. And then you'd have to have, I guess, this, I think it would have to be a higher consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned about the mind, and it having to do something different, there's a great verse in the Bhagavad Gita. For one who has conquered the mind becomes his best friend. But if you don't conquer the mind, it becomes your worst enemy.
Absolutely.
For this very reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the mind is just feeding you.
Absolutely.
Its idea of what the past has been,
exactly.
what your present is,
and what your future is going to be.
And it's just feeding you that.
Yeah, totally.
And you might think that I'm trying to think about it and change it, but actually the mind is saying, no, you don't be so optimistic. Good things don't happen to you. Look at those.
Think of it this way.
So the mind's feeding you that. So the actual trick of transcendence and meditation is to kind of get that mind. Not we can't live without the mind.
Yeah.
But we need to get it under control and actually say, no, I now want you to focus on a new way of looking at today, at this moment.
Yeah.
And I want you're going to become my friend because you're going to you're going to stop feeding me all your propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, if you think of it this way, if the mind, if what we were getting in terms of the product of the mind was not, fear, anxiety, guilt, shame, all the negative stuff, and the positive stuff as well, I accept, the happiness and all the rest of it. But usually that's channeled.
But usually it's usually a temporary happiness that the mind.
Absolutely. Exactly.
He's up,
it never goes to the heart.
He's up for a few moments, then actually dashed again.
So the point is then, Martin, so what then taking all that into consideration, if you like, what then do we still need the mind for? In that example you've given from the Bhagavad Gita, what then, having conquered the mind, what then, how do you then use the mind?
Well, the mind, in existential terms, the mind is the repository of all the ideas. Now, it's intelligence which gathers.
Is it the repository or merely the?
It's a pool of it.
Merely the if you like, the replicator.
No, the mind isn't the processor. And I'm talking kind of Vedanta terms here. It divides up different functions.
Because they say that the brain is a data processor, don't they?
It's a physical version. But what the brain does, it processes electrical impulses, chemical electrical impulses. But when you actually look at what's happening in the brain, you can't see, you can see all these neurons firing off against one another and forming networks and patterns, and we can actually analyze through the CAT scans and things which ones are firing.
Yeah.
But what we don't understand is how come that what you and I see is a picture, what we hear is a sound, and where in those neurons, we can say these neurons fire when we see this particular picture, but neurons firing are not a picture. Whereas you and I perceive a picture of the world. And that's why neuroscientists say...
Well, that's what the brain is for, isn't it? The brain actually is like a television receiver, in a sense.
Yeah, I know, but it loses the picture. In one sense, it just turns the picture kind of going through the video camera of the mind into electrical impulses which go into a processor. But there's no picture there anymore. The picture has been reduced just to chemical kind of firing. But we perceive a picture. Yeah. Therefore, there has to be another mechanism behind the brain which is decoding that electrical impulse, turning it into a picture which is then posted on the screen of consciousness, which is what we then see.